Physician-assisted suicide, or death, also known as PAS, is defined as the voluntary termination of your own life with the direct or indirect assistance of a physician by a lethal substance. This is defined to us by MedicineNet. PAS can be an extremely controversial subject. Currently, Oregon, California, Vermont, Washington, Colorado, and Montana all have legalized physician-assisted suicide. I believe that with proper and responsible legislation, more states should follow their lead and do the same. If done in the correct manner, PAS can be a way for chronically ill patients to end their suffering before debilitating illness progress, leaving them without any control. There are many reasons why PAS should be passed, such as people have the right to determine when they want to die, people should have a right to end their suffering, and that if it isn't, people resort to more gruesome methods. One main reason that we should support PAS in becoming legal in more states is that we should all have the right to die when we choose. The American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, tells us in 1996 in the court case ACLU Amicus Brief in Vaco versus Quill that a state's categorical ban on physician-assisted suicide as applied to competent, terminally ill patients who wish to avoid unendurable pain and hasten inevitable death substantially interferes with this protection of liberty interest and cannot be sustained. There are many other instances when we are given this right. We are allowed to request a DNR, or a do not resuscitate order, which tells physicians and healthcare providers not to do cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR if a patient stops breathing or if their heart stops beating. We're also reserved the right to refuse or be submitted to taking medications and doing procedures or treatments, even if they have the opportunity to be life-saving. Just as we have these options, I believe that we should also have the option of PAS in situations where this is the only option. Another reason that PAS should be passed is that patients should have the right to end their suffering without having to wait until their body is taken hostage and turned into shells of what they used to be. I have seen this happen firsthand with my own eyes. A couple of years ago, my great-aunt was diagnosed with multiple severe, painful, and chronic ailments. They not only took over her body, but her mind as well. She became extremely emaciated, malnourished, and underweight. She even got to the point where she weighed less than 80 pounds. She wasn't there cognitively, and she eventually lost all or most of her memories. She wasn't able to recognize anybody, not even her own daughter, who was her caretaker. She could barely talk, and she mostly grunted and yelled when she wanted to communicate. She couldn't do anything by herself, including eating, changing her clothes, bathing, going to the bathroom, etc. She relied completely on her daughter to do everything for her. Watching my great-aunt experience this much pain and suffering was awful, and it shows me that there are definitely things far worse than death. Patients should have the choice of preventing such a fate from occurring. Another reason that PAS should receive support is that if it doesn't, many people will try to go about it in other ways that are much more horrifying and traumatic. If someone feels that this is the only option they have from escaping a future of suffering, it means they are committed to this idea and will make it happen no matter what. They will seek out other methods if physician-assisted suicide is not an available option. It is better if we pass legislation that will allow patients to have more of a dignified option that can be peaceful and painless and surrounded by loved ones. Some people may say that a patient may end up regretting a decision by making it on a whim, or that PAS can be an option that can be really easily abused. However, with proper legislation, this won't be the case. Oregon health authorities tell us that there are many guidelines in Oregon For example, a patient must make 2 requests between 15 days apart. They need to have 2 doctors sign off instead of just 1. They also need to inform the patient of all of their other options, such as hospice or pain management. They may also even need to inform their next of kin, and there are a multitude of rules that doctors and patients need to adhere to before using this resource. These guidelines can ensure that PAS can be done in an ethical and safe manner. I have a graph here that shows the number of patients as well as the number of prescriptions. On the top, we see the number of prescriptions that have been granted since 1998 when the bill was passed all the way up to 2007. As we can see, this graph illustrates that there definitely is a need for this, but it also shows that not all patients who are prescribed these medications actually end up taking them. So it shows that patients do have full control over this. As you can see, there are many reasons why PAS should be passed. People should have the right to choose when they die. They should also be able to prevent themselves from having to endure a future of suffering. Another reason PAS is important is that if it isn't passed, people will try to commit suicide in more traumatic ways that are both traumatic for not only the patient, but for the family as well. PAS is not a happy topic, but it's an important one. It gives people another option and a choice.